The morning air carried a crisp chill, signaling the arrival of autumn. The small town buzzed with excitement as residents and visitors alike gathered along Main Street for the annual Harvest Festival parade. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze above the street, and the scent of freshly baked pies wafted from nearby food stalls. Families had staked out prime spots hours earlier, spreading blankets on the curb and setting up folding chairs to secure their views. Children darted between groups of people, clutching balloons shaped like animals or cartoon characters, while parents exchanged cheerful greetings with neighbors. The highlight of the parade was always the Marching Royal Guard, an elite group known for their precision drills and dazzling performances. They weren't just ordinary marchers. They were a symbol of discipline, teamwork, and excellence. People whispered about how synchronized their movements were, marveling at how every step, every turn, seemed almost otherworldly. This year, anticipation reached a fever pitch as rumors spread that the Guards would unveil a brand new routine. As the brass band struck up its opening notes, the crowd erupted into applause. The sound of trumpets and drums filled the air, blending with the excited chatter of spectators. Vendors shouted offers of hot chocolate and caramel apples, adding to the lively atmosphere. Parents hoisted toddlers onto their shoulders, ensuring no one missed a moment of the spectacle. Everyone was eager to see what the Marching Royal Guard had prepared this time. But amidst all the joy and camaraderie, there was someone who didn't share the same enthusiasm. Karen. She stood near the front of the barricades, her designer handbag clutched tightly under one arm. Her expression was anything but festive. Karen had arrived late after spending far too long circling the parking lot, searching for the closest possible spot to park her car. By the time she finally made it to the parade route, most of the good viewing areas were already taken. Frustrated and irritated, she scanned the crowd with narrowed eyes, muttering complaints under her breath about these people taking up space. Karen's irritation only grew when she realized she was stuck behind families sprawled across the sidewalk, kids sitting cross-legged on the ground, and even a few dogs lounging lazily. To her, none of them seemed to appreciate the value of personal space, or so she thought. In her mind, she deserved a better view than anyone else because, after all, she lived here. Didn't she pay taxes? Didn't she contribute to keeping this town running? Why should she have to crane her neck over strangers just to watch a silly parade? Her growing sense of entitlement began to bubble over. As the first floats rolled past, Karen shifted restlessly, scanning the area for an opportunity to improve her vantage point. That's when she spotted it, a gap near the edge of the road where the barricades weren't fully secured. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, ignoring the shouts of nearby spectators warning her to stay back. With a huff, Karen planted herself directly in the middle of the street, blocking the path of the approaching Marching Royal Guard. Little did she know, her decision would set off a chain of events that would leave the entire town talking and laughing for weeks to come. Karen's arrival onto the scene was nothing short of dramatic. Clutching her expensive handbag like it was a lifeline, she scanned the crowd with an air of superiority that made those around her shift uncomfortably. Her perfectly styled hair and designer sunglasses screamed high maintenance, and her sharp glare seemed to say, "Out of my way. I'm important." She had clearly arrived with one goal in mind: to claim what she believed was rightfully hers, regardless of how many people stood between her and her desired spot. As Karen surveyed the situation, her frustration grew. The street was packed with families who had come early to secure their places, spreading out blankets and setting up chairs as if they owned the pavement. Children giggled excitedly, while parents helped them wave tiny flags or hold sparkly wands. To Karen, these people weren't just enjoying a community event. They were obstacles standing between her and the perfect view. She muttered under her breath about amateurs and people who don't know how to plan ahead, completely oblivious to the fact that everyone else had simply followed the rules. When Karen noticed a slight gap near the barricades where the crowd thinned out slightly, her eyes lit up with determination. Ignoring the clear boundaries set by the organizers, she stepped forward without hesitation. A few bystanders called out, telling her to stay behind the barriers, but Karen brushed them off as if they were invisible. "Excuse me," she snapped back, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Some of us actually want to see something besides the back of someone's head." With exaggerated confidence, Karen crossed the line. Positioning herself right in the middle of the street, she planted her feet firmly, refusing to budge even as others pleaded with her to move. One elderly woman gently reminded her that stepping into the parade route wasn't safe, but Karen rolled her eyes and shot back. "Oh, please. I've lived here longer than half of you. If anyone deserves this spot, it's me." Her tone left no room for argument, though several spectators exchanged annoyed glances, clearly unimpressed by her attitude. The marching royal guard was now approaching, their polished boots clicking rhythmically against the pavement. Their movements were so precise, so synchronized, that it looked almost magical. Each step they took exuded discipline and professionalism, drawing gasps of admiration from the crowd. But Karen showed no interest in their performance or respect for the hard work and dedication behind it. Instead, she folded her arms across her chest, glaring at the guardsmen as if daring them to challenge her presence. One of the guards, noticing the disruption, broke formation briefly to address her. In a calm and respectful tone, he said, "Ma'am, could you please return to the sidelines? You're blocking our path." His politeness only fueled Karen's indignation. She raised an eyebrow, scoffed loudly, and replied, "Blocking your path? Are you serious? Maybe you should learn to march somewhere else if you can't handle a little inconvenience." Her words drew murmurs of disbelief from the crowd, some shaking their heads while others whispered about how unbelievable her behavior was. What Karen failed to realize was that her actions were far more disruptive than she cared to admit. By refusing to move, she wasn't just inconveniencing the marching royal guard. She was ruining the experience for hundreds of people who had gathered to enjoy the parade. Yet none of that mattered to her. In her mind, she was entitled to whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted it. And as the tension mounted, it became clear that Karen had no intention of backing down anytime soon. Little did she know, her stubbornness was about to lead to consequences she couldn't have imagined. The standoff between Karen and the marching royal guard quickly became the focal point of the parade, drawing the attention of everyone nearby. What had started as a festive celebration filled with laughter and excitement was now teetering on the edge of chaos, all because of one woman's refusal to follow simple instructions. The guardsmen, usually calm and composed, found themselves in an unusual predicament. Their commanding officer stepped forward again, his voice firm but measured as he addressed Karen. "Ma'am," he said, making direct eye contact despite her sunglasses, shielding her eyes, "you're obstructing a public event. Please step aside immediately for your own safety and the safety of others." His tone left no room for misinterpretation. He wasn't asking anymore. He was insisting. But instead of complying, Karen tilted her head back slightly, a smug smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She seemed almost amused by the situation, as if she believed she held all the power. "Oh, I'm sorry," she replied sarcastically, her hands gesturing dramatically. "Did I interrupt your little show? Maybe next time you should try picking a route where people like me aren't forced to sit behind a bunch of, well, let's just say less important individuals." Her words dripped with condescension, and the crowd collectively winced. It was clear that Karen viewed herself as superior to everyone else, especially those who dared to challenge her. The commanding officer took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. He glanced briefly at his team, silently signaling them to hold their positions. Then, turning back to Karen, he added, "This isn't about importance, ma'am. It's about respect. For the event, for the participants, and for the community. Now, please move." Karen crossed her arms tightly over her chest, her body language screaming defiance. "Respect." She shot back, raising her voice so that even those farther back could hear her. "How about some respect for me? I've been waiting forever to get here, only to find out that half the town decided to park themselves right in front of me. Do you think that's fair?" Her argument might have carried more weight if it weren't for the fact that she had blatantly ignored the rules everyone else had followed. Spectators began whispering among themselves, shaking their heads in disbelief at her audacity. Some parents covered their children's ears, not wanting them to witness such entitled behavior. Others pulled out their phones, eager to capture the escalating drama on camera. The once cheerful atmosphere was now tinged with tension, as though everyone sensed that something big and potentially embarrassing was about to happen. Meanwhile, the marching royal guard remained unfazed. They stood tall and still, their uniforms gleaming under the autumn sun. Not a single guard flinched or broke rank, even as Karen continued to rant. One young boy in the crowd tugged on his mother's sleeve, pointing at the guards. "Why don't they just push her out of the way?" he asked innocently. His mother chuckled nervously and whispered, "Because they're professionals, sweetheart. They handle things differently." As the minutes ticked by, Karen's confidence only seemed to grow. Emboldened by the lack of immediate action against her, she planted her feet even more firmly, daring anyone to make the first move. "You know what?" she declared loudly, addressing both the guards and the growing audience. "If you want me to move, maybe you should explain why I can't stand wherever I please. Isn't this supposed to be a free country?" Her comment elicited groans from the crowd, along with a few muttered remarks about how freedom didn't mean ignoring basic courtesy. Yet, Karen appeared oblivious to the disapproval surrounding her. To her, this was a battle of wills, and she fully intended to win. The tension reached its peak when the commanding officer exchanged a brief glance with his second-in-command. Something unspoken passed between them, and for a moment, it looked like the guards were preparing to take matters into their own hands. But before anything could happen, another figure emerged from the sidelines, a familiar face that would change the course of the confrontation entirely. Everyone held their breath, wondering what would come next. Would Karen finally back down, or would her stubbornness lead to consequences far greater than she anticipated? As the parade continued down Main Street, Karen's presence quickly faded into the background, both literally and figuratively. She had retreated to a far corner of the crowd, as far away from the spotlight as she could manage. But her earlier antics were far from forgotten. If anything, they only grew more legendary with each passing minute. Spectators couldn't stop talking about what had happened, replaying the scene in vivid detail, and adding their own colorful commentary. To them, Karen wasn't just an entitled woman who disrupted the parade. She was now a living meme, a walking punchline. Parents regaled their children with exaggerated retellings of how the marching royal guard took down Karen without ever raising their voices or losing their composure. She thought she was untouchable, one father joked, flexing his arms playfully to mimic the guard's shield formation. His kids erupted into giggles, imagining the moment as something out of a superhero movie. Teenagers huddled together, scrolling through social media feeds already flooded with videos and memes of the incident. One post featured a cartoon version of Karen surrounded by gleaming shields, captioned, "When you try to block royalty but end up on the ground." The likes and shares piled up within minutes, ensuring that Karen's embarrassment would reach far beyond the confines of the small town. Even local news outlets caught wind of the story. Reporters stationed at the festival began interviewing spectators, asking for their thoughts on the confrontation. Most responses were lighthearted, focusing on the humor of the situation rather than any malice toward Karen herself. "Honestly, it was hilarious," said one woman holding a caramel apple. "We all came here to have fun, and she gave us the best show of the day." Another man chimed in, "I've never seen someone get so schooled by a group of professionals. Those guards didn't even break a sweat." Mayor Harper also found herself fielding questions about the incident during an impromptu press conference later that afternoon. When asked whether Karen might face legal consequences for stepping into the parade route, the mayor smiled diplomatically and replied, "While we take safety very seriously, I think today's events served as enough of a deterrent. Let's just say Karen won't be forgetting this lesson anytime soon." Her remark drew laughter from the reporters, many of whom noted the poetic justice of the situation. For Karen, however, the aftermath was anything but amusing. Once the initial shock wore off, reality set in, and it wasn't kind. As she slunk away from the parade route, whispers followed her wherever she went. Strangers pointed and snickered, while others openly discussed her behavior as if she weren't standing right there. At one point, a vendor selling hot chocolate leaned over to his coworker and quipped, "Maybe we should offer her a discount since she's clearly having such a rough day." The comment elicited chuckles from nearby customers, leaving Karen visibly flustered. By evening, the viral nature of the incident became undeniable. Photos and videos of Karen's fall circulated online, accompanied by captions like "blocked by the Royal Guard" and "Karen versus discipline. Who do you think won?" Memes multiplied overnight, turning her into an internet sensation. For all the wrong reasons, friends and acquaintances back home tagged her in posts, some teasingly and others with thinly veiled criticism. For someone who prided herself on appearances, the public mockery was devastating. Despite the widespread ridicule, not everyone viewed Karen's actions harshly. A few people expressed sympathy, noting that her behavior might stem from deeper insecurities or frustrations. "It's easy to judge," one older woman remarked to her neighbor, "but maybe she just wanted to feel important. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it makes me wonder why she felt the need to act that way in the first place." Others agreed, suggesting that the real takeaway from the incident wasn't Karen's downfall. It was the importance of treating others with kindness and understanding. Still, for most of the townsfolk, the story remained a source of endless entertainment. By the time the Harvest Festival ended, Karen had become a cautionary tale whispered among friends and family, a reminder that entitlement rarely goes unpunished and that respecting rules benefits everyone. As fireworks lit up the night sky to close out the celebration, the crowd cheered louder than ever, their spirits buoyed by a shared sense of triumph. And though Karen had long since disappeared from view, her legacy lingered, a humorous yet humbling footnote in the history of the town's beloved parade. In the days following the Harvest Festival parade, life in the small town slowly returned to normal, but the memory of Karen's infamous clash with the marching Royal Guard lingered like a favorite story told around a campfire. The incident sparked conversations at coffee shops, schools, and workplaces, with everyone eager to share their version of events. For many, it wasn't just a funny anecdote. It was a lesson wrapped in spectacle, a reminder of how pride and entitlement can lead to unintended consequences. Local newspapers published articles about the parade, devoting significant space to the confrontation. One headline read, "Marching Royal Guard delivers lesson in discipline and humility." Accompanying photos showed Karen mid-stumble, her arms flailing as she tumbled backward, surrounded by the gleaming shields of the guardsmen. Readers couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of the image, which perfectly captured the moment when arrogance met order. Even Mayor Harper gave an interview, praising the professionalism of the guards while gently reminding the public about the importance of respecting community events. "We're all here to celebrate together," she said. "Let's keep that spirit alive." The marching Royal Guard became local heroes overnight. Their performance at the parade was hailed as nothing short of extraordinary, not only for their precision and skill, but also for their restraint in handling Karen's disruption. Members of the team were invited to speak at schools and community centers, where they shared insights into their training and values. Children looked up to them with wide-eyed admiration, imagining themselves marching in perfect unison someday. Parents beamed with pride, knowing their kids were learning valuable lessons about teamwork, discipline, and respect. As for Karen, her life took a quieter turn after the parade. She kept a low profile, avoiding public appearances and steering clear of any event that might draw attention to her. Rumors circulated that she had deleted her social media accounts after being bombarded with comments and tags related to the viral videos. Friends reported seeing her occasionally, though she seemed subdued, almost embarrassed. Whether she truly learned anything from the experience remained unclear, but one thing was certain: her actions had left an indelible mark on the town. The incident also sparked broader discussions about entitlement and civility. Some people reflected on moments in their own lives when they might have acted selfishly or disregarded others' feelings. Others expressed gratitude for the reminder that cooperation and mutual respect are essential for maintaining harmony in communities. "It's easy to think you deserve special treatment," one resident mused during a community meeting. "But we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. That's what makes these festivals, and our town, so special." For the younger generation, Karen's story served as both entertainment and education. Teachers used it as a talking point in classrooms, encouraging students to consider how their choices affect those around them. One teacher even created a mock debate, asking students to argue whether Karen's behavior warranted the guards' response. Unsurprisingly, most sided with the guards, applauding their creativity and patience. "They didn't yell or argue," one student observed. "They just did their job and proved they're the real MVPs." By the time next year's Harvest Festival rolled around, Karen's name had become synonymous with bad behavior, a cautionary tale whispered among organizers and volunteers. Signs were posted along parade routes reminding attendees to stay behind barricades, accompanied by playful slogans like, "Don't be a Karen." Merchandise featuring the phrase sold out quickly, with proceeds going toward funding future festivals. It was a lighthearted way to honor the chaos of the previous year while ensuring no one forgot the importance of following rules. And yet, despite the teasing and jokes, there was an underlying sense of forgiveness in the air. Most townsfolk recognized that everyone makes mistakes and that Karen's actions, while frustrating, weren't malicious. As one elderly man put it while watching the new parade lineup, "She probably learned her lesson. Let's hope she comes back next year with a better attitude. And maybe a folding chair this time." In the end, the parade became more than just a celebration of autumn. It became a testament to the power of community. Through laughter, reflection, and shared experiences, the townspeople emerged stronger and more united than ever. And while Karen may never fully live down her role in the drama, her story will forever remind them that even the most chaotic moments can bring people together in ways no one could have predicted. Just as it seemed the standoff between Karen and the marching Royal Guard couldn't get any more intense, a new figure entered the scene. Mayor Evelyn Harper, a well-respected leader known for her no-nonsense approach, had been enjoying the parade from the sidelines when she noticed the commotion brewing near the front. With her signature calm demeanor, she stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate attention. Dressed in a tailored blazer and carrying a clipboard, a symbol of authority if there ever was one, she approached Karen with purpose, her heels clicking against the pavement. "Is there a problem here?" Mayor Harper asked, her voice firm but measured. The question hung in the air, directed at both Karen and the commanding officer of the marching Royal Guard. Spectators leaned in, eager to see how this unexpected twist would play out. For a moment, Karen hesitated, caught off guard by the mayor's sudden appearance. She hadn't anticipated having to defend her actions to someone of such prominence. Karen quickly recovered, however, straightening her posture and adjusting her sunglasses as if trying to appear more dignified. "Well," she began, her tone dripping with exaggerated politeness, "I'm simply trying to enjoy the parade like everyone else. But apparently these gentlemen seem to think I shouldn't be allowed to stand where I want." She gestured vaguely toward the guardsmen, who remained stoic and silent, their expressions unreadable behind their visors. Mayor Harper raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Ma'am," she said evenly, "you do realize you're standing in the middle of the parade route, correct? This is a public event, and the rules are in place for everyone's safety, including yours." Karen scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. "Safety? Please. I've lived in this town for years, and I've never heard of anyone getting hurt at one of these parades. You're just making excuses because you don't want me to have a good view." The crowd murmured disapprovingly at Karen's blatant disregard for logic. A few people exchanged glances, shaking their heads in disbelief. One man muttered loud enough for those around him to hear, "She's unbelievable. Does she even listen to herself?" Mayor Harper, unfazed by Karen's theatrics, took a step closer. Her voice softened slightly, but her message was clear. "Ma'am, I understand you may feel inconvenienced, but your actions are disrupting an event that hundreds of people have worked hard to organize and attend. If you refuse to comply, we'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement." Karen blinked, momentarily taken aback. Up until now, she had assumed her persistence would eventually wear down the guards or the mayor, forcing them to give in. But the mention of law enforcement gave her pause. Still, pride refused to let her back down entirely. Instead of moving, she crossed her arms defiantly and shot back. "Fine. Call whoever you need to call. See if I care." With that, the situation reached its breaking point. The commanding officer exchanged another glance with his second-in-command, and the guards began shifting into a new formation. At first, it wasn't clear what they were doing. The rhythmic clinking of their boots against the pavement grew louder as they moved with precision, encircling Karen in a tight semicircle. Their movements were so fluid, so synchronized, that it almost looked choreographed, a performance designed specifically to deal with difficult spectators. Karen froze, her bravado wavering for the first time. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice rising an octave. "You can't surround me like this. This is ridiculous." But the guards paid her no mind. They continued their maneuver, locking shields in perfect unison until they formed a reflective wall around her. The sunlight bounced off the polished surfaces of their shields, creating a dazzling glare that momentarily blinded Karen. Startled, she stumbled backward, losing her footing and landing awkwardly on the ground. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, unable to contain their delight at the poetic justice unfolding before them. For Karen, the fall was humiliating. She sat there, dazed and red-faced, as the guards resumed their routine without missing a beat. It was as if she had never been there at all. Meanwhile, Mayor Harper offered a final piece of advice. "Next time, ma'am, remember that respect goes both ways. Now, please return to the sidelines. And stay there." As Karen scrambled to her feet, brushing dirt off her designer clothes, it was clear that her day had gone from bad to worse. The crowd's laughter echoed around her, sealing her fate as the star of an unforgettable and highly embarrassing parade moment. The moment the marching Royal Guard began to shift into their new formation, it was clear that Karen had underestimated them, and badly. What started as a simple standoff quickly turned into something far more dramatic and unexpected. The guardsmen moved with precision, each step calculated and deliberate, their boots clicking in perfect unison against the pavement. To the crowd, it almost felt like watching a choreographed dance, except this performance carried a weight of authority that left everyone breathless. As the guards surrounded Karen, forming a tight semicircle around her, she looked around in confusion, her confidence beginning to crack. "What are you doing?" she demanded, her voice wavering slightly for the first time. But the guards didn't respond. Their faces remained impassive behind their visors, their focus unwavering. They locked their shields together in one fluid motion, creating a gleaming wall that reflected the bright autumn sunlight directly into Karen's eyes. Blinded by the glare, she squinted and raised a hand to shield her face, but it was too late. Her footing faltered, and with a startled yelp, she stumbled backward, landing unceremoniously on the ground. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, unable to contain their excitement at the spectacle unfolding before them. Parents laughed as they pointed out the scene to their children, while teenagers whipped out their phones to capture every second of the chaos. Someone shouted, "That's what happens when you mess with the pros." Another voice chimed in, "Karen, maybe next time listen to the rules." Laughter rippled through the audience, turning what could have been an awkward disruption into a moment of pure entertainment. For Karen, however, the experience was anything but amusing. Sitting on the ground, her designer clothes now dusty, and her sunglasses askew, she looked utterly mortified. Her face flushed crimson as she realized the entire town was laughing at her. She scrambled to her feet, brushing herself off frantically, But the damage was done. Every eye was on her, and every laugh seemed to echo louder than the last. For someone who prided herself on being in control, this was a nightmare come true. Mayor Harper watched the scene unfold with a mix of satisfaction and amusement. She stepped forward once again, addressing Karen in a tone that was firm yet tinged with a hint of sympathy. "Ma'am," she said, handing Karen a pamphlet about local parade regulations, "I hope this serves as a reminder that events like these require cooperation from everyone. We're all here to celebrate our community, not create unnecessary drama." Karen snatched the pamphlet, muttering under her breath about how unfair the whole situation was. She glanced around nervously, clearly wanting nothing more than to disappear. But there was no escape, not with hundreds of people still watching her every move. Reluctantly, she shuffled back toward the sidelines, keeping her head down to avoid meeting anyone's gaze. The crowd parted slightly to let her pass, though not without a few parting remarks. One woman quipped, "Don't worry, Karen. There's always next year." Another man added, "Maybe bring a ladder next time, instead of blocking the parade." As Karen finally retreated to the safety of the barricades, the marching Royal Guard resumed their routine without missing a beat. Their movements were as sharp and flawless as ever, as if nothing had interrupted them at all. It was a testament to their professionalism and discipline, qualities that only made the crowd cheer louder. Spectators clapped rhythmically, whistling and shouting words of praise for the guardsmen. "You showed her," one man called out, pumping his fist in the air. A little girl tugged on her mom's sleeve, wide-eyed with admiration. "They're like superheroes," she exclaimed, earning a laugh from those nearby. In that moment, the marching Royal Guard became more than just performers. They were heroes in the eyes of the townspeople. Their ability to handle the situation with grace and poise had turned a potential disaster into a highlight of the parade. And while Karen may have thought she was the center of attention when she stepped onto the street, she quickly learned otherwise. By the time she slunk away, red-faced and defeated, the real stars of the show were the guardsmen, whose actions reminded everyone of the importance of teamwork, respect, and humility. As the parade continued, the mood shifted back to its original festive spirit, but with an added layer of excitement. People buzzed about what had just happened, replaying the details over and over. For many, it was a story they knew they'd be telling for years to come. And as for Karen, well, she wasn't likely to forget this day anytime soon, or the lesson that came with it. Trapped within the circle of gleaming shields, Karen's bravado shattered like glass. For a few seconds, she stood frozen, blinking furiously against the blinding glare reflecting off the guards' polished surfaces. Her mind raced, trying to process what was happening, but there was no time to think, only react. When her foot slipped on the smooth pavement, she flailed wildly, arms pinwheeling in an attempt to regain balance. But it was too late. With a thud and an undignified squeal, Karen landed hard on her backside, her designer handbag flying out of her grip and spilling its contents onto the ground. The crowd roared with laughter, unable to contain their delight at the absurdity of the moment. Children giggled uncontrollably, pointing at Karen as if she were part of a slapstick comedy routine. Parents exchanged amused glances, some even doubling over in mirth. One teenager shouted, "Karen, maybe next time bring a helmet," while another called out, "That's why we stay behind the barricades." The energy in the air shifted from tension to pure joy, transforming what could have been an awkward disruption into one of the most memorable moments of the parade. For Karen, however, the fall was nothing short of mortifying. She sat there, dazed and red-faced, staring up at the towering figures of the marching Royal Guard who surrounded her. Their silence spoke volumes. They weren't gloating or mocking. They simply stood there, unmoving, as if waiting for her to realize the gravity of her actions. The sunlight reflected harshly off their shields, making it impossible for her to ignore them or the hundreds of eyes now fixed on her. It was as though the entire world had paused just to watch her embarrassment unfold. Finally, Karen managed to scramble to her feet, brushing dirt off her clothes with jerky, embarrassed motions. Her once pristine white pants were now streaked with grime, and her sunglasses hung crookedly on her face. She bent down to gather the scattered items from her purse: a lipstick tube, a crumpled receipt, a pack of gum. But every movement felt exaggerated under the weight of the crowd's stares. People whispered and snickered around her, their amusement palpable. Someone snapped a photo of her mid-recovery, and though Karen didn't notice, others in the crowd chuckled knowingly, predicting that the image would soon go viral. Mayor Harper stepped forward again, her expression stern but not unkind. "Ma'am," she said firmly, "I hope this has driven home the importance of following instructions, not just for your own safety, but for everyone else's as well." Karen nodded stiffly, too humiliated to argue further. She muttered something under her breath about how over-the-top the guard's response had been, but her words lacked conviction. Even she seemed to realize that she had pushed the situation far beyond reason. As Karen finally retreated to the sidelines, keeping her head down to avoid eye contact with anyone, the marching Royal Guard resumed their routine without missing a beat. Their movements were as precise and synchronized as ever, a testament to their professionalism. They marched forward, executing complex formations with effortless grace, as if the entire incident had never happened. To the crowd, it was nothing short of awe-inspiring. Cheers erupted once more, louder than before, as spectators clapped and whistled in appreciation. One elderly man turned to his wife, shaking his head in disbelief. "Did you see that? Those guards handled her better than I've ever seen anyone handle a Karen." His wife laughed, nodding in agreement. "Serves her right for thinking she's above the rules," she added. Nearby, a group of teenagers huddled together, already pulling up social media apps to share videos of the spectacle. "This is going to blow up online," one of them said excitedly. "Karen versus the Royal Guard. It's gold." Meanwhile, Karen slunk away, her earlier confidence completely gone. She found a quiet spot near the back of the crowd, where she could disappear from view, but the damage was done. Strangers pointed and whispered as they walked by, some openly laughing at her expense. A young boy tugged on his mother's sleeve, asking innocently, "Why did that lady fall down?" His mother smiled and replied, "Because sometimes, when people don't follow the rules, life finds a way to teach them a lesson." By the time the parade moved on, and the marching Royal Guard disappeared around the corner, Karen was practically invisible, swallowed up by the sea of people who had come to celebrate the festival. But her actions, and the Guard's brilliant retaliation, would live on in the memories of everyone present. For the townsfolk, it wasn't just a funny story. It was a reminder that entitlement has consequences, and that respect for others is non-negotiable. And as the day wore on, Karen remained a cautionary tale, a woman who tried to defy the system and ended up getting exactly what she deserved.